Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome back to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. Today we're diving into Deuteronomy Chapter 6, and trust me, this one is a big deal. I know I always say that in every episode, but this one is a big deal. It's always a big deal. Every chapter, every episode is a big deal. Anyway, so grab your drink, get cozy, and let's dive in. All right, so picture this. The sun is rising over the Israelite camp on the plains of Moab. Millions of Israelites were wiping sleep from their eyes and maybe sand everywhere, probably. So in front of them, old Moses is climbing up on a rock or a slight hill. He cups his hand around his mouth and hollers, "Now hear this, y'all." So okay, he probably said, "Hear, O Israel," but you get the idea. So the crowd quiets down, kids stop chasing goats, everyone leans in. Moses is about to drop some serious wisdom. Let me just move this. I'm too close. Okay. All right. So he starts off reminding them why he's giving these commands. "These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God told me to teach you to observe in the land you're about to enter." So the goal is so that you, your children, and even your grandkids may fear the Lord and keep his commands, and so you may enjoy a long life. Moses basically says, if you obey God, life's going to be good. We're talking long life, things going well, and your population exploding like rabbits in spring, all in this sweet land flowing with milk and honey that God promised. Milk and honey, by the way, sounds like a divine dessert combo, especially back then. So fun fact, that phrase, "a land flowing with milk and honey," was used in ancient Egyptian literature to describe Canaan lushness. And scholars think the honey might have been date syrup, not the bee stuff. Either way, sounds yummy to me. I love dates. I actually just had one thing of dates before I pressed record, so I do love me some dates. So Moses wants them to remember obedience to God equals blessing. It's like he's saying, guys, this isn't just a history lecture. This is the key to thriving in our new home. So before anyone's attention drifts, Moses raises his voice for the main point. You know how every great speech has that one line everyone remembers? So here it comes. Israel's core creed. Moses proclaims, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." In Hebrew, the first word is Shema, meaning hear or listen up. And that's what this declaration is called, the Shema. In the NRSV translation, it reads, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. While the NIV puts it as, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Either way, so it's actually, that's why it's very important to read like different versions of the Bible, not just the one that you have, just FYI. Because you can interpret it also in so many different ways. And that's what, that's why there's different versions of the Bible. Anyways, so there is no buffet of deities to pick from. Israel's God is it, the numero uno. This was a huge deal in a world where every other nation had like a gazillion gods. They have a god of harvest, uh god of rain, or god of sun, or god of whatever. So so yeah. So Moses doesn't stop there. He follows up with the natural response to having one awesome God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. In other words, love God with everything you've got. Your whole being, heart, soul, strength, the works. This is like John 3:16 of the Old Testament, super famous. Jesus himself quoted this as the greatest commandment centuries later. If you're feeling the gravity of Moses' words, you're spot on. This is the core of Israel's identity, all in, nothing held back love for God. Imagine the people nodding, maybe some even reciting along this line. This line becomes a daily prayer for Jews in up to the present, really. Um, Moses has essentially summed up the entire law in one breath. Acknowledge the one true God and love him fully. Absolutely fully. But Moses isn't just dropping the mic yet. It's not done. He's just getting started on how to keep this truth alive in daily life. So Moses continues by saying, take these commandments to heart, keep them deep inside you. He doesn't want this to be a one ear in and one ear out situation. The truth needs to sink in. Keep these words in your heart, he says, meaning they should be part of you, not just an external rule book. Again, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. All your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Then he gets super practical. Recite them to your children, or uh, or impress them on your children, depending on which version of the book you're reading. Again, on RSVUE, it says recite them to your children. On NIV, it says impress them on your children. So talk about them all the time. When you're at home or away, when you lie down, when you get up, essentially make God talk a normal part of life. Around the dinner table, on the morning walk to get water, during the evening campfire, tucking the kids in at night. Every moment is a teachable moment about loving God. Again, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. All your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Yeah. So, um, lost my train of thoughts. So parents are the OG faith, influencers. So if you're a parent, Moses basically says you're the disciple maker in chief for your kids. If he says do it diligently, not a half-hearted once in a blue moon thing, yeah. So do it diligently. Um, Picture an Israelite dad, carving out time each night to tell the Exodus story to his kids, or an Israelite mom teaching her children a song about the Red Sea crossing while grinding grain in the morning. Is that kind of vibe. So Moses then gives some vivid instructions. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be as frontlets between your eyes. So basically, tie God's commands on your hands and foreheads and write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. In modern times, Moses is saying keep reminders of God's word everywhere. I already took it down because I'm packing up my stuff because we're moving to a different house. But I had framed Psalm 91, and I put it by my door, the front door. I have one in my room, and I have one in my daughter's room. So something like that. Or something that a scripture, or a verse, or whatever that resonates with you. Print it, put it in a picture frame, and put it in your living room where you can see every day. That's pretty much what I'm talking about here, or what Moses was trying to say. Um, but the Israelites eventually, like took it quite literally. So by Jesus' time, Jewish people were actually making little leather boxes called, um, I'm gonna butcher how to say this, phylacteries, with Bible verses inside, and tying them to their arm or forehead during prayer. So Jesus later calls out the religious leaders for making extra large phylacteries to show off, classic humble brag move of the Pharisees. And that part about writing on the doorpost, that became the practice of the mezuzah. Jewish homes to this day often have a small container affixed to the door frame with verses from this chapter, whatever inside. So how cool is that? Like, the idea is every time you come or go, you touch the little box and remember, oh yeah, we serve the Lord here. With me, well, the point is to feel safe, because I did have Psalm 91 in there, so it's for safety. Like, it reminds me that I am safe, I'm protected because God is my fortress, right? So that was a reminder for me every time I go in and out of my home or in my room or my daughter's room, so where was I? Mm. So, yeah, so they have those decorative Bible verse wall arts also at Hobby Lobby or Home Goods, Amazon. You can buy those. You can just make it like I made my own, right? So totally Deuteronomy chapter 6 approved if you do have those. The point Moses drives home is saturate your life and home with God's truth. Make it unavoidable in the best way. So if you just have it everywhere, every corner of your home, then good, So by now Moses has essentially said, love God with everything. Teach your kids and surround yourself with reminders of God so you don't forget. Why why the heavy emphasis on not forgetting. Moses knows human nature, which leads to the next big section, a warning about the future. And yeah, we are very forgetful. I know I'm very forgetful because I'm always thinking about my daughter. I often forget a lot of things. That's why I have a reminder for everything. Um, so Moses gazes at the people, maybe with that knowing look, grandpas get. He says, paraphrasing here, one day real soon, God's gonna bring you into this awesome land he promised with great cities you didn't build, houses full of all kinds of good stuff you didn't fill, wells you didn't dig, vineyards and olive groves you didn't plant. It's like he's describing the ultimate move-in ready dream home. Wouldn't that be nice? Fully furnished and stocked, courtesy of God's grace. Just a fun fact. In other countries, um, I don't. Well, I'm just gonna use Asia to be specific. Countries in Asia, when you move into an apartment, or even if you buy it or rent a home, usually they're already furnished. Here in the U.S., I don't know. I've only ever lived in. Well, this is technically my second apartment. We're moving to a townhouse after this, but I've only ever been in two apartments really, and none of them are furnished. I don't think any apartments are really furnished when you move in. But in other countries in Asia, a lot of places are already move-in ready, furnished, like furnished is what I'm talking about. Anyways, wouldn't that be nice? Ultimate move-in ready dream home, fully furnished and stock, courtesy of God's grace. So you're gonna eat and be satisfied, he says, envisioning them with full bellies and happy hearts. But, and there's always a but, Moses continues, when you're living the good life, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Because we often forget, especially once, we start living a good life, we forget about the old life, and then we get complacent, and then we forget, you know, that. So he knows the danger ahead. Prosperity can lead to amnesia of God's grace. Moses basically says, don't get spiritual Alzheimer when you're swimming in blessings. So over and over in their history, this warning sadly comes true. When Israel got comfortable, they often did forget God, leading to all sorts of mess. It's a human thing, right? When life is hard, we cry out to God. When life is smooth, we sometimes put God on the back burner. Moses is waving a big red flag about this tendency. Don't go there. Remember who gave you all of this. So he emphasizes gratitude and remembrance. Never forget it was the Lord who rescued you from slavery in Egypt. Every full stomach, every comfy house in Canaan should remind them of God's deliverance. You almost sense Moses getting intense here, maybe stroking that long beard, and pointing his staff for emphasis. Next, Moses drills down on loyalty. Fear the Lord your God, serve him only, and take your oaths in his name. Meaning, if you swear an oath, to do it by God alone, not some, idol. So that phrase, fear the Lord, can sound weird to modern ears. Like, are we supposed to be scared of God? Not exactly, but we're supposed to be scared of the repercussion when we sin. Anyways, the idea is more like awe, deep respect, and reverence. One commentary I've read in Deuteronomy about Deuteronomy, it applies an awe-filled respect where you wouldn't want to offend God because you love him so much. It's that healthy, humble recognition of God's greatness. Moses says to have that attitude and serve God only. He adds, do not follow other gods, the gods of the peoples around you. Remember, the Israelites are about to move into a neighborhood, just Canaan, where everyone else worshipped or worships different gods. They have Baal, Asherah, you name it. It's like Moses is saying, don't even think about cheating on Yahweh with those local idols. Why? For the Lord your God is among you. Who is among you is a jealous God. His anger will burn against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the land if you go after other gods. Again, you better be scared. Anyways, so that escalated quickly. So jealousy might sound like a bad trait, but here it's God's righteous jealousy, like that of a loving spouse. God won't tolerate unfaithfulness. He's not okay being one of many gods. He's the one. The one. If Israel were to start bowing to idols, it's kindle God anger. It's gonna kindle God anger first. Or yeah, and fast. Very fast. Moses basically says, don't poke that bear, people. It won't end well. This might have some folks in the crowd, gulping, but it's needed. They have to know God expects exclusive devotion. He did call himself a jealous God back in the Ten Commandments, after all. He's a jealous God, and he knows it. So to put it in millennial terms, God isn't interested in an open relationship. He wants Israel's whole heart. God doesn't want to be an app running in the background of your life. He wants to be the entire operating system. That's the level of priority and loyalty God expects. Moses then gives another specific command. Do not put the Lord your God to the test as you did at Massa. Does that ring a bell? The Israelites listening would recall that story from Exodus chapter 17. Massa, meaning testing, was a place where the people ran out of water and basically threw a tantrum. They yelled at Moses, why did you bring us out of Egypt? We're dying of thirst. Is God with us or not? It was not their finest hour. And to be honest, they didn't have a lot of fine hours. Anyways, but they were doubting God's presence and demanding a miracle on their terms. Moses struck a rock and God did provide water, but he named the place Massa and Meribah. because meaning quarreling because of how they tested God there. So to test God doesn't mean like a written exam. It means to provoke God by doubting him and insisting he prove himself. Like, who are you? Like, God does not need to like prove himself to you. So anyways, it's like telling God, I'll trust you if you do this specific thing for me. Like, the audacity, like, who are you to say that to God? Like, so it flips the script and makes God answer to us, which is a big no-no. Because when he does answer that, oh my gosh, best believe, like, you better regret. So in Massa, Israel questioned God's care despite all the miracles he'd done. Talk about short memory. And so testing God is essentially saying, perform for us, God, or we won't believe or obey you. Like, who says that? Like, they did, pretty much. Not a good idea for a mere human to demand that the Almighty, dance to our tune. Moses is saying, never do that again. Don't say, God, if you don't do X, or out. Like, Jesus actually quotes this exact verse much later when Satan tempts him in the wilderness. Satan challenged Jesus to jump off the temple roof to force God to save him. Like, talk about trying to force God's hand. Like, what? But Jesus is God. Like, that was stupid of Satan to say that too. Like, do you like even know who you're talking to? Like, are you that naive? Like, Jesus responds, it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. He knew scriptures and Deuteronomy like the back of his hand. So if Jesus thought this verse was crucial enough to shut down the devil, it's serious wisdom for us too. Again, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Period. Trust God. Don't try to manipulate him. There's no manipulating God. You will just regret it. God had proven his love and power. Their job was to remember and trust, not demand new proofs every Tuesday. Again, Moses continues, diligently keep the commands of the Lord, his testimonies, statutes, etc., and do what is right and good in the Lord's sight. There's the word diligently again, not casually, not occasionally. Diligently keep them. The result is so that it may go well with you and you may go in and take over the good land the Lord promised, and so that all your enemies will be driven out before you, as the Lord said. It's a reiteration. Obey God and you'll see victory and prosperity. Like, God's like, I've got all these blessings lined up for you. Just walk in my ways. Under the covenant with Israel, obedience and blessing were tightly linked. Now we know from the broader biblical story that Israel, being human, didn't always obey. But Moses is giving them the formula up front. It's like the operating instruction for life in the promised land. Follow God's ways equals life is good. Rebel equals you void the warranty. So while the old covenant was based on earning and deserving blessings by obedience, the new covenant in Jesus is about believing and receiving by faith. But Moses' audience is under the old covenant system here, and he wants them to succeed. He's 120 years old and he has seen what happens when they disobey. So he does not want history to repeat in the land of milk and honey. So Moses is basically coaching them. Keep doing right in God's eyes, not just what you think is right. Then you'll prosper and conquer your enemies just as God promised your ancestors. It's both an encouragement and a subtle or else. And knowing human nature, Moses probably expects some failures, which is why he's so empathetic. And he knows more than anybody how disappointing people can be. He knows that more than anybody else in the world ever. Okay, so finally Moses wraps up the chapter by looking to the future again. He says, in the future, when your son asks you what's the meaning of all these laws and rules the Lord has commanded us, you shall tell him. And Moses proceeds to give them a model answer. It's the story time again. We were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. He did great and awesome signs and wonders against Egypt and Pharaoh, and he brought us out from there in order to bring us in and give us the land he promised to our ancestors. So did you catch that beautiful line? He brought us out to bring us in. Moses frames their history as a purposeful rescue mission by God. God didn't free them just to wander aimlessly. He freed them to bring them into a wonderful inheritance. So Moses instructs parents, when your curious kiddos tugs on your robe asking, Dad, Mom, why do we follow all these commandments? You don't just say, because I said so. You tell the story. You root the commandments in relationship. God saved us, therefore we gladly obey him. He continues in verse 24, the Lord commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him so that we might always prosper and be kept alive, as is the case today. It's a testimony and a teaching moment combined. Moses wants each generation to pass down both the what and the why of the law because God saved us and wants our good. So finally on the next verse, which is verse 25, he says, it still messes me up every time the video focuses. Anyways, and if we are careful to obey all these laws before the Lord our God, as He has commanded us, that will be our righteousness. Essentially, we'll be doing right by God and considered righteous if we obey. This shows the Old Testament understanding that following the law was how Israel demonstrated faithfulness. Of course, later on, the New Testament will clarify that nobody can achieve true righteousness by law keeping alone. Sorry, itchy. Um, yeah. So imagine a little Israelite boy hearing this story from his dad or mom years later, eyes wide, as you know, the parents talk about miracles in Egypt, water turning to blood, Red Sea splitting, Pharaoh looking like a fool. And then the kid goes, wow, so that's why we obey God, because he's amazing and he saved us. The law stops being just a list of do's and don'ts and becomes a response of gratitude. That's what Moses is after. He's ensuring the faith isn't just rules on stone tablets, but a living story handed down heart to heart. And that, Bible nerds, is Deuteronomy chapter 6 in a nutshell. Wow, 27 minutes. So it's the heartbeat of Israel's faith. Love God totally. Keep his words central in your life and family. Don't forget him when you're living the dream. Stay loyal to him alone. Don't test his patience and always remember the why behind it all. Because this God rescued us for a relationship with him. Moses likely had a bit more to say, spoiler, a lot more in the coming chapters, but you can almost hear him take a breath here. The crowd is probably stirred, some wiping tears, some deep in thought. This is their legacy he's talking about. And knowing Moses, he probably injected a bit of passion and maybe even humor as he spoke. Imagine him wagging a finger at the teenagers who rolled their eyes, teach them to your children. So yes, you too, young man, young lady, listen up. So Deuteronomy chapter 6 feels like a grandpa's heartfelt speech, long speech to his family, loving, urgent, and a little repetitive because he really wants it to sink in, right? And all right, let's go ahead and we're almost at a half hour. Let's go ahead and move on to our fun fact corner. So the milk and honey and dates. So we often think of honey from bees, but many scholars say the honey in land flowing with the milk and honey quote would be date honey, a syrup from date palm fruit. Israel had and has lots of date palms, so it might have been saying, this land is flowing with goat milk and date syrup. But just saying milk and honey is just so much more better, I guess. Um, but like goat milk and date syrup, that sounds like an ingredient for an excellent smoothie at that time. I'm sure my boyfriend would love that because he loves goat milk. I've I've never tried goat milk. I don't know if I prefer almond milk. I am kind of lactose intolerant too, so I don't know how that's gonna affect. Anyways, I digress. So it meant the land was rich and fertile. Period. Also, a fun nugget. That phrase was not just Bible jargon. It appears in other ancient Near Eastern texts. The milk and honey thing. The Egyptian used it to describe Canaan too. Canaan's brand was basically a milk and honey LLC. Um, that's it for fun fact corner for me. So what's next for our intrepid Israelites? Well, in the next chapter, Moses isn't pumping the brakes. He's actually about to hit the accelerator. So we'll hear him lay down some intense instructions for when Israel enters the promised land. Think zero tolerance on idols and even a mandate to clear out the current inhabitants. So it's heavy stuff. So if you thought today was a challenge, chapter 7 ups the ante on trusting God's plan. Like, will the Israelites dare to be that bold and different from the nations around them? We'll unpack it all next time. Same time, same channel. So thank you for listening to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe. You can catch new episodes on YouTube or Spotify podcast. Until next time, stay blessed and stay curious.